got people that, listen, we know exactly what we want, all right? We know the outcome that we're looking for, but we're missing the steps to get there. We're missing the time frame, what might be realistic, all right? So we want to have a little idea of that as we move forward. Now, the way I kind of see it when we're thinking about goals, thinking about going in direction, there's only ever three paths. There's like path A, we're just going in a straight line, nothing is changing. All right, we're just cruising along and nothing is changing in any way, shape or form. Does that make sense? Here, do you want to take this? I don't know what I'm talking about. No problem, you got to see it later, bud. So again, for some people and sometimes it's okay just to be cruising along, right? We're not always chasing after things. That's very unrealistic. Generally speaking, you kind of, you know, there's one area or aspect of your life that you might be driven to kind of chase something in, let's say work. Maybe health goes by the wayside. Then maybe health comes into priority and something else goes by the wayside, right? You can't chase all things at the time. Or we're in this situation where we're going up to B, we're successfully achieving a goal in some way, shape or form, or we're going down to C. Stuff isn't working, all right? We're breaking down in some way, shape or form. So whatever it is that we're trying to chase after, we're not getting it, okay? So I think what we want to also think about is that, like, sometimes we see ourselves as, you know, I'm this individual and we don't really have a full understanding or maybe a full respect for us as people, this kind of biosocial aspect. It's kind of like your biology is at play, right? So how your biology works, and that's going to be somewhat different for different people. There's going to be the social aspect, so your environment, right? How does that interplay to aid, to help you or to pull you back? And then there's obviously your psychology, right? The mindset piece of the puzzle. So if we haven't got all these things working for us, they're going to be working against us. Does that make sense? So you can kind of see within that social, family, friends, jobs, boss, skill, all that type of stuff. In terms of your psychology, it's going to be a lot around, you know, your priorities, your values. Again, the story you might be telling yourself. In terms of your biology, it's going to be your hormones, your metabolism, age, all of these type of things. I think very often though we have to be careful of the stories we tell ourselves about age. All right, it's like I'm old or I'm young, so therefore I can't do X, Y, and Z. All right. So I suppose the point that I'm trying to get across here is that when we're thinking about goals, we've got to think about how are all these things interplaying. I'll give you one quick example. If somebody comes in and they're trying to talk about, I want to lose weight, very often I'm going to ask them, we had this conversation earlier on, about, right, is everybody in your life supportive of this goal? And they're like, yeah, everybody's great. 2 weeks later, you're like, right, what's going on? They keep ordering pizza in the house, or they keep bringing in, you know, Coke and leaving it on the table. I know you like Coke, I'm just going to leave that there for you. Like, what the fuck's going on here? So your environment, the people around you are kind of conspiring against you. Now, that person mightn't necessarily be doing that on purpose, all right? Or maybe they are doing it on purpose. That's something that you would have to chat with them about. But it's just an understanding of it's not so simple as I'm not going to do X, Y, and Z, and then I'm going to get this result. Does that make sense? So, I suppose for us as the gym, right, this is something that I spend a lot of time thinking about. It's like, how does one get more living out of life, or how do we contribute to getting more living out of life, all right? And the thing with the dominoes is, we want to be thinking, right, what domino can we knock over? And if we do this one thing or this one group or constellation of things, it's going to have a domino effect and impact all other areas of our life. Does that make sense? Because so many times you'd hear somebody talk about they change X, Y, and Z in their nutrition, and all of a sudden lots of good things happen. They come into the gym and that kind of acts as an anchor to the rest of the day. All of a sudden all these other good things happen. Some people it might be, geez, I've cut down drinking, good stuff happens. Some people might start drinking more, good things happen. Right? So it depends on each person. But this is something that I kind of spend a lot of time thinking about. And for us, right, that idea of more living out of life, these are a few things that kind of happened over, can't hear that, doesn't really matter. But this is a video I took over in Paris at the Olympics. And you know, like for a lot of you guys, you would have seen Kelly coming in and out of here over the last few years, right? So her more living out of life is like win 2 gold medals, pretty fucking big aspirations, all right? For the guys here who've done the high rocks, like, you know, before they went to do the high rocks, it was like, it was this big thing. I said to them halfway through, I was like, you are doing well here. Remember, Katie, you were like, Katie, come on the fuck, let's go here. She's like, I'm going as fast as I can. I was like, you can go faster. All right. And listen, they came out and won a medal. Now, the thing about it is, right, it's not really about winning a medal or coming second or coming first per se. But it's like, that was a great experience, right, for the guys to have. This here, right, is, I always go back to this picture and kind of have a little think about it, right? So everybody probably knows Derek here. And we were going to do this thing called the 4 Peaks Challenge, right, where we're going to try and do the highest mountain in each thing. And as a part of it, we were going to go and do each of the mountains on their own, just so you had to know, right, what's coming up, blah, blah, blah. And I says to Derek, just like from passing, having the crack, sure, Derek, you'll come with us, won't you? Ha ha. And then the next day he's like, so when are we going to do it? And I was like, oh, fuck, what are we going to do here? It's like, oh, jeez, I don't know, will you be able to do it? All right, but lo and behold, he came along. Now, it took a while, it took probably 8 hours to get up and down the mountain. But this is Carrantoul here, right, the highest mountain in the country. And we went all the way up here, and then right down here in this valley, there's a thing called the Devil's Ladder. And I was looking at the other coast going, oh, we couldn't need to kill Derek here, we have to be careful, all right? And then all the way up, all right? Yeah, 100%, 70 years old, first time ever. And here's the thing, all right? When we got back down, we took a little moment and sat down on this bench, right? And for me, it was an amazing thing to see him looking back at what he'd just done, and that kind of, I suppose, emotion inside. I was like, fuck, I've really done something amazing there. And again, it's not about lifting weights. That doesn't really matter. It's not about going on the rowing machine. For him, he's had this experience that he never would have been able to do if he didn't have a certain level of fitness. Does that make sense? One sad thing about this, when another woman in the gym seen this happen, she was like, I'm 70 in a few weeks' time, I want to do that. I was like, no problem, we can do it. And her family going, oh man, I don't know about that, and she didn't do it. Now the likelihood is that she's probably never going to do that. Now, in her whole life, going up and down the mountain, does it really matter that much? But I think we just have to be careful about the people around us and what they're saying. Now, they all had the best of intentions in, to tell her not to do that. But she 100% could have done it. She's fitter than Derek. She could have done it. But she didn't do it because she was told not to. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And this is something, right, that comes up. I was doing this meditation with, what's his name, Sam Harris, right? And this meditation comes up, I'm like, oh shit, this is heavy. It was about the last times. So for every single one of us, there's going to be things that happen throughout your life that it's the last time that happens, all right? My daughter, Kayana, we just went up to see Giant's Causeway there over the Christmas, right? And 2 years ago when I walked into the house, she jumped up and she's like, Daddy, Daddy, Daddy! Fucking hugs and kisses and everything. So she's 5 then. She's 7 now, right? And I walk in and like, right? But she'll still want the story, going to bed, and da. Now, the thing is, right, this isn't, I'm not trying to be morbid here, but if we relate back to get more living out of life, if somebody's fitter, somebody's stronger, mentally, physically, emotionally, they're gonna have more time to have whatever experiences are at play. So for me, much more important than Jesus, somebody lost 2 stone or somebody can bench press more weight, it's how can we help people get more experiences that are meaningful to them. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And without a goal or the direction within your training, it's going to be harder to develop whatever capacities you're looking for to create your own get more living out of life. Does that make sense? So I think for me, that's the power of the goals, and that's the power of what this could be for any individual. All right? And sometimes you have a conversation with people, and sometimes you never know where it's going to go. Like I told one of the lads in the gym, see Kelly, she's going to go to the Olympics and win a medal. You should sponsor her. Oh yeah. I say to him every day now, remember that, Colin? You should have sponsored her. I could have got you a good deal. All right, so listen, here we go. So what I want to have a quick touch on is identity, values, priorities, and goals. So look, your identity is who you are or who you think you are, okay? But this is going to be critically important as we progress here, right? In terms of values, it's kind of what matters to us or what matters to you. In terms of your priorities, and this is where we can fall down a little bit, our priorities are actually where we put our focus and our attention. So somebody can come in and say, Jesus, my priority is X, Y, and Z. And it's like, well, everything you do in your life is nothing got to do with that thing. Does that make sense? So if somebody's priority is I'm going to use health in sometimes weight loss or, fitness here a little bit, but this could be anything, Sometimes people might say, it's usually men, most important thing in my life is my family. It's like, well, you've spent a full long time with them. Now again, I'm not, but it's just like, is it really our priority? All right, maybe the priority is something different. And again, I'm not judging, just saying. All right. The next thing then is goals. It's like what we say we want. So again, a lot of it is going to be right. How do we align all these things together so we can actually get the outcome that we're looking for? That's really what we're about. So in terms of goals, it's just look at what's the person's objective, their aim, their desire. And ultimately, what we want to think about is how do our habits, or something to think about, our habits drive our behaviours, okay? Our behaviours drive our actions, and our actions drive our results in terms of a plus or a minus. Does that make sense? So in order to achieve a goal, we need to change our behaviour, change our actions. In order to change our actions, change our behaviour, we need to change our habits. Okay? So very often we worry about the goal and we don't actually worry about the habits or the actions that will get us that thing. Does that make sense? So when we want to change, listen, there's only two reasons, or there's only two things that we need to think about. Or when we find a challenge, I should say, sorry. And Katie, you kind of touched on this about, finding a goal or not finding a goal. Sometimes we try to change the wrong thing, all right? So it's like, I want X, Y, and Z, but the process that we try and set up to get it is the wrong process, all right? Or we try and change our habits in the wrong way, all right? So we try and do things that are maybe unsustainable. So we've all been in a situation where like, I fucking do it the whole time as well. It's like, hey, I'm gonna try this new diet, and it's like, but it's Tuesday, so I'm gonna wait till Monday to do it, all right? I was in the shop the other day and this lad's, Dave, giving up the smokes, you, well done. Dave turns around to him and goes, no, I'm gonna start on Monday, all right? So it's like, it was really important to him, and it was like, it's so bad for you, blah, blah, blah. Why are we waiting till Monday, all right? So when we look at habits and goals, very often what happens is this, right? If we think about it in this way, we turn around and we establish, right, what's the outcome that we're looking for? And we turn around, and I'm going to use weight loss as a simple example. It's like, I want to lose, for me, right, I want to lose a few kilos before I go and do this ultramarathon. So I'm spending a lot of time and energy thinking about, I want this thing, and not enough time or energy thinking about, right, what process have I got to follow? What system have I got to follow to get that outcome? Does that make sense? So without a plan, the goal is useless. That outcome is useless. But ultimately, we have to think a little bit about the identity piece. So the outcome, it's what you get. The process is thinking about, right, how are we going to put that together? And ultimately, we need to change our story, our identity around the habit that we're trying to achieve, right? Because if my story is, in the past, a lot of the time has been, I'd maybe see eating as competition, right? So if I'm sitting down having a meal with somebody, I'd be like, can I eat this faster than them? And I know that sounds stupid, all right? Or if I'm at home with the girls, I'd be looking at their plate going, I wonder are they going to finish that food? Because then I can eat more of it, all right? So like I'm eating a dinner and a half of their dinner all at the same time, right? Because I'm quite competitive. So I wonder how much of that I can eat. Now, I know that sounds silly, but that identity or that story that I've formulated there means that I eat more than probably what I need to eat, all right? And we all have our own versions. Well, dialogue and your internal story that you're telling yourself subconsciously. And think about that language. I think I will probably try. What has that person just said to themselves? What's the story that they've just said to themselves? Yeah, well, I'm going down, fuck all. Yeah. Nothing, there's a lot of doubt in that, all right? So again, without us changing that internal story and that internal dialogue, we're not going to be able to change anything external to that. I'm a procrastinator is a story. So before I do anything, I procrastinate and I seek out all this information. Is a story that you've told yourself, let's say. And in order for you to do things faster, you have to drop that story. Does that make sense? Now, we all have different versions of that. Some people are saying, I'm not good at IT. My wife says that the whole time. I'm not good at like computery things. And like, Jesus Christ, you can find all sorts of stuff on the internet, but you're not good at whatever, It's like, you just have told yourself a story about it, okay?
So here's the kind of thing to think about. If nothing changes, nothing changes. So when we're thinking about change, it's kind of a two-step process. The first thing is decide the type of person you want to be. And then the second thing is prove it to yourself with small actions and wins. That idea of small is critically important, and that idea of wins is going to be critically important. We'll come back to that later on, where we need to celebrate whatever it is, all right, in some way, shape or form. So for me, taking on something like doing that ultramarathon, right, it wasn't so much about doing the ultramarathon. It was more a case of, in order for me to do that, I have to do certain things on a day-to-day basis. So coming off COVID and, you know, training and fucking business and all that, on the weekends I was like, oh Jesus, I just couldn't be arsed just going on a mad one, all right? And it's like, in order for me to stop going on a bit of a mad one on the weekends, and again, we probably all have a version of that, it's like, I need structure and routine and some big goal that's like, all right, I can't do those habits, I can't do those behaviors anymore, otherwise I won't be able to get this goal. Does that make sense? Now, I'm not saying for anybody to lock in to do something mad like that. It's just that the process is the same, all right? Now what we want to think, all right, when it comes to habits, all right, so we've already said we need to change our dialogue, change our story. We do that by small actions. In order to achieve a goal, we need to change our behaviors. Our behaviors are led by our habits, and this is kind of how habits work. It's a kind of 3-step or 4-step process. We have a cue or a trigger, all right? Something happens in the environment to catch our attention, all right? After that cue or trigger, we get a craving, so it's something pulling us towards an action or a behavior. Then we have a response, and then we get a reward. And what happens when those things are all brought together, I kind of just touched on that there. What's kind of happened, let's say here, right, here's the scenario here. You see a box of chocolates, so that's the cue. It's like, oh fuck, this actually happened the other day here, right? Holly comes in with it. I'm sitting at the desk trying to do this presentation. Holly comes in with an open box of chocolates, drops it down in front of me, and I was like, get the fuck out of here with them. She goes, huh, and off out the door. I was like, she's sabotaging me here. Sabotage me. So the box of chocolates is sitting there. So you get a craving. There's thoughts, there's feelings, there's emotions about the chocolate. They taste great. I want them. And again, there's a story inside with that. Again, very often when it comes to food in particular, we have stories from the past associated around with that food. So we have this pleasure-pain response. It's like you go to the doctor when you're a kid, what happens? Get a lollipop. You get a lollipop for being brave or being good. You go to the dentist, what happens? You get a lollipop. Now, roll on 40 years later, you've gone to work Monday to Friday and you've been a good adult. What happens? I deserve a glass of wine. Now, I'm not saying that we shouldn't have a glass of wine, but I'm just saying the similarity of how these loops are, I suppose, installed in us. And then in order for people to change, if that wine was causing them an issue, how do we kind of break down that loop? All right? So then in terms of the response, there's very little friction, there's low mental or physical effort required. You eat the chocolate, all right? So for me to go upstairs and take the chocolate out of the box would be harder than she actually brought it in and put it right down in front of me. The bloody chocolate was even open. So for fuck's sake, Holly. All right, then we satisfy our craving, it tastes good, you got energy, it teaches us that chocolate feels good. And we've set up this reward loop that kind of goes like this. We've got a cue, that cue creates a craving, that craving creates a response, that response creates a reward in some way, shape or form. So in order for us to interrupt this cycle in some way, shape or form, we need to put a break in here at some point in time. Does that make sense? Now, this is where, for a lot of people, this is where a coach could come into play. Because you could lay out, hey, this is what's going on in my life. And because you're stuck inside that, it's very hard for you to see places to make any type of change. So it's that whole idea, you can't read the label when you're inside the jar. So the coach has that external eyes, outside perspective that can kind of show you along this path here some ways. So think about this, the reward closes the habit loop and completes the habit cycle. So, you know, that reward piece at the end. If the reward doesn't satisfy your desire, there is no reason to do it again. So if you do something, it's like, meh, you're not going to go and try and do that thing again, all right? without steps 1 and 2, the behaviour will not occur, and without all 4 steps, we won't have a repeat of that action. So when we're looking to change behaviours in some way, shape or form, we can turn around and say, if we want to create a positive habit, now again, I suppose, if we're taking notes of this is, keep that in mind that we're trying to plant seeds here. That I'm not expecting anybody to be like, all right, so on Monday, this is what I'm going to do. But it might give us an idea to have a conversation around if there was something that somebody needed a little bit more help with. But listen, if we want to create a positive habit, in terms of our cue, we need to make it obvious, all right? So let's say when I want to eat more fruit at home, at the minute, the fruit bowl is in where the bleeding laundry is with the washing machine and all that jazz. You can't see it. So if I wanted to make that more obvious, where would I put the fruit? Yeah, on the kitchen table. And then you're going to eat more of that, all right? When you see sweets on a shelf in a shop, they're at what eye line? Yeah, they're at the kids' eye line, aren't they? Because they're like, Mommy, Daddy, I want them bloody sweets. So they put it right where they can see it. Does that make sense? So in terms of the craving, can we, if we want to make it positive, can we make it more attractive, whatever the thing is that we're trying to chase after, all right? In terms of the response, can we make it easy? And in terms of the reward, can we make it more satisfying? So this would be for each person, all right? What is it that you're looking, what habit or behavior are you looking to change? And then how could you introduce these things in? If you want to break a habit, what we want to do is just flip the script and do the opposite. So how can we make it invisible? So again, if there's food in the house that we didn't want to eat, we make it harder to get. We don't see it, all right? Because here's the thing, right? If you all walked in here and on that chair there was a black box with a lid on it, nobody would touch it. Does that make sense? If that black box was see-through and inside it there was lovely biscuits, but it still had a lid in it, not many of you would go, here, here's one of them biscuits, and take the lid off. But if there was no lid on it and it was a see-through box and it had a sign that said, take a biscuit, what would happen? Lots of biscuits would be taken, all right? So what we've just done there is we've made it more visible. If there's something you don't want, you make it unattractive, make it difficult, make it unsatisfying in some way, shape or form. Any questions on that so far, guys?
I've found before when breaking a habit,
yeah,
go all in on it for a month,
yeah,
2 months or whatever, it usually is January.
Yeah.
And then suddenly you're going away somewhere and you go, I can enjoy this. And you go so hard the opposite.
Yeah.
Because you think, oh well, I'm free here. And then it's impossible to get back on.
I think there's probably...
You haven't broken the habit.
Yeah.
You've used sheer willpower.
Yeah.
Where you never really believed it or something.
Yeah, so I think 2 things are probably at play there. One piece of that puzzle is, did somebody change their identity around who they are and how they behave? Because very often, even adults will use language like, I'll be good. What do you mean, I'll be good? Do you know what I mean? But that's insinuating that eating a chocolate bar is bad. So like, it's just a chocolate bar. It's not good nor bad. It is just what it is. Does that make sense? But we have these internal dialogues built around, I'm being good now. And what happens when you be good? You gotta be bad, all right? So the 2 live with each other. There's a yin yang there, all right? As opposed to, it's like, this comes down to time frame. It's like, if weight loss was the goal, it's like, do I want to lose 2 stone in 1 month or 2 months, or do I prefer to lose, 2 or 3 pounds a month, but forever, or until I get to the point where I want? So therefore, the behaviours would be a little bit different. Does that make sense? Yeah. So again, and I think when we come to look at the next few slides, we'll go into that in a little bit more detail. Any other questions so far? Just to get a quick check-in. Are we all still with me?
How long does it take to break a habit?
Great question. So there's so much research out there that says, oh, it's 21 days, it's 66 days. It's all bullshit. It's all going to come down to how strongly you want that thing. Does that make sense? So if the drive is strong enough, somebody can change straight away. So like, you see people all the time, they watch a documentary, right? And they're going, I'm never going to eat meat again. It's like, just overnight, they've just gone from being a carnivore to a vegetarian, for example. And they're just like, nope, I'm not doing it. That's it. I'm never eating meat again. Sometimes people get a phone call and they're like, hey, listen, such and such happened to a person. I'm never smoking again. All those type of things. So people can change if there's a strong enough drive and a strong enough will. All right. So we'll skip on here. Just after COVID, I went and done a training course with this guy here called BJ Fogg. And BJ Fogg runs the Stanford Behavior Change Institute over in America, in Stanford University, all right? So he has a whole method around habit creation, habit change called Tiny Habits. And in his class, all right, he was the guy, they taught the guys who set up Instagram, all right? And they kind of showed them, right, using this psychology, it will get more people to use the app and blah, blah, blah. And we all see where that's gone. But you have to think, when we go back to your phone, for example, and we think about cue, all right? So how does your phone give you a cue to pick it up? So it has some sort of notification. And you have to think, right, in terms of all these companies, what's the purpose of the phone? How do they extract money from you? Attention. So the more attention they have, the more data points they have on you, the more they can sell you things that you want or you desire. Does that make sense? So in order for you to get that, you've got to use the phone. In order to use the phone, it's got to grab your attention. So if your notifications are on, what happens? Your phone vibrates. So you've got a kinesthetic cue. It's like you actually can physically, it's buzzing in your pocket. You've got a ping going off. So you've got an audible cue. And you've usually got some sort of visual cue where like a red dot will shine or something like that. You know, you've got 6 messages or emails or you've got mail, whatever the case may be. So all of this, they've obviously taught a huge amount about. So you're looking at your phone, you've got all these cues going off. Your brain's going, I wonder what's in there. I wonder what's in there. All right, so now you've got a craving. And then you click on it, it's like, oh, you know, Dave sent me a picture of a funny cat. You've got a little reward. Does that make sense? And we go into this loop and all of a sudden you're scrolling away. But within this, all right, what BJ, through all of his research and all the years, has kind of come to realize is that there's only 3 ways to change a behavior, all right? So way number 1 is have an epiphany. Way number 2 is to change our environment, and we've kind of touched on some of these things slightly already. And way number 3 is to take baby steps or make it super small. All right? Because again, sometimes to try and change a big thing is just like, oh, I couldn't even be arsed trying, it's just too much effort. So it's like, if somebody's like, I don't like vegetables, it's like, will you eat 1 bleeding leaf of whatever, spinach? All right, I'll eat 1 leaf. And if you can eat 1 leaf, what can you do? Eat 2 leaf if you can eat, and we can build on from there. Does that make sense? So again, in that scenario, and I know this seems really silly, but that person's changed their identity from, I do not eat vegetables. Why? Because my dad used to give out to me and all that jazz when you were a kid, to, well, I can eat 1 vegetable. And you nearly feel silly because it's 1 leaf. But if you're eating 1, it's easier to eat 2. And that exact same thing applies all throughout. So the next thing here, when he came to the gym, he was, I think, about 160 kilos, all right? And he's like, I want to lose weight. I've tried everything. So he turned around and go, well, listen, why are you here? He says, I have a bit of a story. I love stories. Hit me with a story. He goes, well, listen, I was on family holiday last year. The whole family, brother-in-laws, cousins, everybody, we rented out a boat around the Mediterranean. Got to this lovely piece, similar to that, we all said, we're going for a swim. So everybody starts jumping in, and it's time to go back, right, get a bit of dinner, have a few drinks, all the rest of it. And they all start getting back into the boat. And Jay swims over to the boat and he grabs on, he's like, boat goes down a bit. Boat goes down a bit. He's like, I can't get in. So imagine like an Irish family, right? They're all sitting there, brother-in-laws, you fat, and he's getting sticks. So they're like, what are we going to do? What does he do? He has to hold on to the back of the boat. Yeah. And he had to sail him in to the harbour, and he had to climb up the stairs. And at that point in time, he said to himself, fuck that. Next year, I'm losing weight. And that was the result, that was the video. So he was able to jump off the boat. I think he lost about 30 or 40 kilos. He's a big lad, strong lad. Lost these 30 or 40 kilos, was able to get into the water, get back out, happy days. So here's the thing, it's like he had an epiphany in that moment. This is not going to happen to me again. Now, here's the thing, right? We cannot create epiphanies, otherwise I'd be a millionaire. But just somebody comes in, tells me a story, boom, you are healed, all right? I wish I could, but I'm good, but we're not that good, okay? So, the epiphany thing sometimes happens, you know, but it's nothing that we can really generate. So we're on to, and here's the bleeding, these are the actual chocolates. Now I'll have you know, I didn't eat any of the chocolates. But then, do you know what? Jess came in today.
Excuse me, no.
There was a load of Tato on the table. So now there's chocolates and Tato on the table. So I had a packet of Tato. But it was like I trained really hard today. So this is my justification. I need carbs. Exactly, Norma. Like these are only carbs. That's what I'd be telling myself. But anyway, here's the thing about context or environment, all right? If you change your environment, your habits and behaviors can change. Does that make sense? The easiest thing to think there is, look, those chocolates being there, people just walked into the office and they're like, ooh, chocolate, and they ate 3 or 4 of them. Each one of those chocolates is 80 calories. So like 4 of those chocolates is the average person's workout done. I don't care what your watch told you, you're not burning that many calories, sorry. Okay? So look, I'm not being mean, I'm just being real. So, and again, eat the chocolates is not a big deal. It's not a judgment thing, but it's just understanding that if those chocolates weren't there, or if somebody actually had to physically open them, they wouldn't have opened them. It was just they're there. The other thing, it's like, there was jelly beans in the office, right? And I went in, I was like doing a hard work, I said, fuck, I'm gonna have some of these jelly beans. So the jelly beans were out, so the girls all seen me eating the jelly beans. The next day, the jelly beans were gone. So they'd been sitting there for like weeks, all over the Christmas, starting into January. And then when somebody seen somebody eating the jelly beans, it was kind of like, oh fuck, this is a free-for-all, everybody eat the jelly beans. Does that make sense? So there's nothing wrong with eating a few chocolates, there's nothing wrong with eating jelly beans, but we have to think about the environment that you're in. Is that empowering, whatever your goal or actions or behaviors, or is it disempowering? Does that make sense? Now, for most people that I've ever sat down and had conversations with, the environment that they were in for whatever goal they were trying to seek was the problem. And all the thinking, all the willpower in the world will not be able to change that. Does that make sense? So sometimes we have to change our environment, and being here is a great way to do that. So here we go, guys, right? What we're going to have a little look at here is this idea of the Fogg Behavior Model. So if we want to change any behavior, it's going to be important for us, as we said, the whole idea about like identity versus outcome is about the story we tell ourselves. And now we can think about, right, how can we construct better habits or behaviors that are going to be lasting for a long period of time, all right? So if we want to change if we want a behavior to happen, it needs these 4 things. We need the right amount of motivation, we need the right ability, and we need a prompt, okay? So something to trigger the thing to happen. What did I say with the phone? Bzzz, flash, sound, and then all of a sudden you're picking the phone up, all right? So I'm just going to draw this up here for a little second, and then we can have a little bit of a discussion. So think, we've got motivation, we've got ability, and then we've got our prompt here. So in order for a behavior to happen, it has to sit on this side, all right? So it has to be the right amount of motivation and the right amount of ability. Does that make sense? So at the beginning, I kind of said, hey, listen, sometimes people don't know what they want. So, I mean, ability can be a bit of an issue there, all right? It's like, if you don't even know what you want, do you have the ability to chase after that thing? Or sometimes people do know what they want, but they're a bit meh. Do I really want it all that bad? So they're not motivated enough in order to chase down whatever that thing is. Any questions so far, guys? Still all right? I might need to start talking faster, right? So if we get close to it, you tell me. Talk faster. Before we jump into this, right, motivation, I think it's interesting sometimes to look at the origin of where a word comes from, all right, to kind of see, right, what does this word even mean? Now, look at meaning of words can be different to different people, right, like, you know, through their experience. But this idea of mover is like to move, to stir, to agitate, to affect, to provoke, to disturb. So there's action involved in that. Does that make sense? So in terms of motivation, there has to be some sort of push or some sort of pull. Now, the thing that gives us the push and the pull is hormones. There's going to be a cascade of hormones. Dopamine, feel good if we chase after something we want. Testosterone makes you a bit more, I'm going to chase after things, all right? So there's a cascade of hormones happening to motivate us towards or away from something. Then as this word got used more and more and more, it started to take on kind of metaphysical or metaphorical meanings in terms of your psychology, emotional impulses and drives. Then in Old French, it was kind of about purpose and doing something. So again, if you have a big purpose, if you're highly motivated by what you're chasing after, you're going to do it. Does that make sense? So for me, even thinking about like the goal that I'm doing, like an ultramarathon, I'm 40, just turned 40. It's like, I'm going to do something a bit mad. I can't afford a Porsche yet. So we'll have to put that off for another few years, all right? So listen, we're going to do something mad in terms of something physical. All right, so there's that motivation, and then it's like, right, I'm going to do it for a charity, because even if my leg is hanging off, I'm not going to give up, because I've said I'm going to do it for the charity. Now that motivates me, that mightn't motivate other people, because I suppose for me, in terms of purpose, if I say I'm going to do something, I'd rather die than not do it nearly. Now I know that's a bit silly, but we're down the beach a while ago, and I'd been swimming for years, and we went for a swim. And Eilish, the swim back is like, on the way back, it's like, oh fuck, this is killing me, because I'm shite at swimming, I'm brutal, right? And Eilish was standing at the pier, like looking out, going, is he coming back? She goes, I nearly went over to your man, the lifeguard, to say, here, listen, my husband's gone missing, and he's been gone about an hour. But she's like, I knew you'd kill me, so I just left you. But we made it back to tell the story, all right? And then look, in terms of English, it was kind of this idea of inner drive. So motivation is all about drive, purpose, motion, action. It's pushing or pulling. Does that make sense? So in terms of, we've got 4 core motivators. We've got sensation as a motivator, pleasure or pain. Okay? So for me, if I said to somebody, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, and then I didn't do it, the pain of not doing it would just near kill me. Does that make sense? Now again, all of our motivators, that's just me as an individual. So I would rather go through a shitload of pain than to have to say I couldn't do it, or I didn't do it. If I couldn't do it because I physically couldn't do it, I'd be okay. But if I gave up, I'd be like, that wouldn't sit well with me. Does that make sense?
No.
Chris knows what I mean. Chris was trying to bleed and chase me up Slave Donard once. I'm not letting him beat me. So this idea of pleasure or pain. So we have to understand, right, how can we use this? Now, what I would just caution on the side of, if we go too much pain and we don't kind of lean into the pleasure side of things, I think that's a recipe for disaster. So if we create a habit or a goal and it's all fear-based, I think that's going to be a recipe for disaster in the long run, all right? Ultimately, I think the best type of goals is where we lean into our identity, we lean into our strengths and what's going to empower us as opposed to disempower us. Does that make sense? All right? We've got anticipation, so hope or fear as a motivator, right? So listen, I'm not religious per se, but the whole of religion is based on that. It's like, if you say your prayers, you're going to go, the pearly gates is going to be there. And if you don't say your prayers, what's going to happen? You're going down below, going to the gym. So it's all right, no matter what your thoughts are, it's kind of very fear-based, okay? That's worked for thousands of years. Or this idea of belonging. So we got social acceptance, social rejection. Think about environment as well. You're in here, an environment, hopefully this is a place where people come in, you can just be yourself. You're accepted by this group, this community. It's a nice place to be, as opposed to you go in somewhere else and people say, that's not my gig in there. They're all in there with their tops off and flapping in the mirrors and doing all this jazz, okay? So, even go back into, I think one of our biggest fears as humans is to be rejected from society, to be pushed off out, We're all in here in the safe confines around this wall and you're outside. It's like, So we had to ask, how can we use these things to construct your own goals? So when we're looking at ability, guys, there's 3 paths to increase our ability. We can train new skills, but to train new skills is super hard. We can give tools and resources and make the task easier. Here, listen, you want to get better at nutrition? There's a cookbook for you. Follow that. Or you can scale back the target behaviors to make it super easy. What did we say about you should probably be eating more vegetables? I don't like vegetables. Will you eat one thing of broccoli for me? Just the one. All right, I'll do that. You've made it super easy for the person. So in terms of this ability piece, this ability chain, look, it's going to be time, money, effort, mental effort, routine. So imagine like effort here. For a lot of people on the outside there, they're like, oh Jesus, I wouldn't go to that gym. It looks really hard. If we can get you to the front door, like nobody's going to bait you the first time. It's like, come in, we'll just do a little bit of training, you're going to feel great. Oh, that wasn't too bad. We made it super easy. Does that make sense? And then you can push on and do harder and harder things. So when we're looking at the model, right, in terms of your prompts, think about your body. It's like pain. Oh shit, I've got some sort of pain. The prompt is, don't do whatever you just did there because it's painful, all right? If you have your car, now if it's my wife, none of this matters. Fucking lights on all, woo, 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 woo. I don't know, right? Dan, you might have to cut that out, right? Because she'd be watching, I'll get it in the neck, okay? But genuinely, like your engine has a light come on, you know, right? Something has gone wrong in there. We need to change it in some way, shape or form, all right? So a prompt is giving us a direction to go in. So I was looking for a picture of one of the coaches and this one just popped up. If you're down the back, you mightn't be able to see it. It's Mitch and some other random dude naked together. Listen, I don't judge. I'm just here, right? I don't judge. So Mitch and me are having a conversation and Mitch says, Jay, do you know, I really should eat more vegetables because I want to get even leaner and even bigger, all right? It's like, holy shit, right, what do we do here? He needs to eat more vegetables. So, you know, it's important to eat vegetables, but it's hard work. So his motivation is high, but the ability is low. So he hasn't crossed over into this side, so therefore he's not eating more vegetables. Does that make sense? So we turn around and we say, do you know what would be a good idea? Get chopped vegetables. Because the vegetable piece is like, oh, chopping them up takes forever. What if you bought vegetables that were already chopped for you? What have we just done there? We've made the action that he wants to do easier. So because we've made that action easier, we've increased his ability. As we've increased his ability, he's moved over here and it's like, hey, we've taken on this new behavior, this new action. Does that make sense? Does anybody have any kind of questions on this and how they might apply it to something for themselves?
Sometimes people say their motivation lacks. What's the difference between motivation and discipline?
So I think if we went back here, right, and well, there's too many slides back, I won't go back. I'll be pressing that forever. If you actually think about it, it's like, think about the person's values, all right? So very often, maybe actually this next slide will help. Very often this idea of ambivalence comes into play, right? So where people have mixed feelings about a thing. They're kind of like, I kind of want this thing, but I also kind of want this other thing.
And it was oh well meaning.
Yeah, but do you know what I realised as well? So I'm going to go back to Jay. So the guy who jumped off the boat. And again, he wouldn't mind me talking about this because he would openly talk about this. But the role he fulfills in his friend circle with all of his friends is he's Jay, he's the big lad, right? So he doesn't drink. So when he goes to a house party, he comes in, he's like, yo, Jay's here, and he's loud, and he's fucking laughing and joking, and make sure he slags everybody before they slag him. And what happens then is, like, inevitably, like, everybody's having a drink, and then the woman, whoever house it is, they're like, Jay, I got you jelly and ice cream and sweets and all that, right? So if he's trying to lose weight, he can't be eating the jelly and ice cream. So he's like, no. And then they're like, what do you mean? I'm after getting that for you, and you're not going to eat it. So within psychology, there's a thing called secondary gain. And it's like, secondary gain is when you feel bad for somebody else feeling bad for you type thing. Do you know what I mean? So like, this is where, you know, to change a habit and behavior is not so simple as, it's January and I'm not going to drink for the month and I'm going to run a marathon. For a lot of people, if you actually truly want to change, that is going to change forever, It's really about changing that identity and changing your internal story about yourself, but also then other people's internal story about you. And that's the hardest bit. People don't want to give up that story very often. Does that make sense? Which, again, the only way that we can truly do it is making those changes so small that they kind of build up, and it's like knocking over that domino that we spoke about at the beginning. That all of a sudden somebody looks back and it's like a year later and they're like, holy shit, this person is way different than what they were. And again, like what some people said, it's very hard to kind of see that from the outside, and that's where coaching can come in to just keep nudging you back onto that path, or to have the conversation to re-establish what are your priorities, what are your goals. Does that make sense? So I realise, you know, a core value of mine is competition. And that can be good and bad. It's like, you know, if you're in a boxing match, pop, 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 competition is good. When you've got a 4-year-old daughter and you're chasing, you know, having a race and you're beating her and the wife is like, she's 4. And you're like, listen, I'm teaching her a life lesson here. Not so good. Do you know? So again, everything has pros and cons. But this idea of ambivalence, people have mixed feelings about things. Resistance, kind of that idea of avoidance or pushing back against things, because change is hard. To change who you see yourself is scary, because in order to change your identity and become a new person, you have to let go of the old person, and the old person is what got you to here. So imagine like when we're a little child and we create this character, this identity to kind of keep that internal child safe, whatever that means for each person. In order for you to break free and to change who you are in any way, shape or form, you've got to let that go. And it's like, oh fuck, this has got me to here. And it's a scary thing to do. Does that make sense? Now that's a bit deep there maybe for a Tuesday, but there is truth in that as well, you know? So guys, I'm going to pause there and just come back to you guys. Has anybody got any questions relating to kind of goals for themselves that they want to kind of touch upon? Or have I just, he spoke too much and my brain's not working. Oh, I have one more thing. Anything?
I've been trying to do my gym or be active before work. That's such a struggle.
Do you really want to do it before work?
Yes.
So now, look, that's a great thing.
Even like, I find I did it for a month where I woke up early and I would go for a walk before work.
Brilliant.
Sometimes just 15 minutes, 10
Yep.
minutes, sometimes half an hour, depending on it. And I always found that I didn't hate work as much.
That's a positive thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because you have to work.
And like when I came home, I had more energy and the evening felt longer. But now it's such a struggle. I don't know if it's winter and it's dark. Kind of did it during the summer when it was.
Well, listen, I think there, if you think it, there's lots of stuff there, right? But if we pull back and unpack that slightly, I want to do this thing in the morning. I feel better. It has a positive thing. Excellent. In the summer, it's obviously going to be easier because it's bright out.
Yeah.
All right. So now it's dark. It's like, oh. So it's become harder to do that thing. So now it's like, again, go back to the gun at your head question. If I was standing at the end of your bed, would you get up and do it? Yeah. Of course you would, right? Because you're fucking highly motivated. He has a gun and there's a weirdo at the end of my bed. I kind of know him, but this is a bit much now. All right. But you get where I'm going. But here's the thing. So then you have to pull back again and turn around and say, we'd have to have a conversation around what time is somebody going to bed at? And now there's a whole host of other things. Because, you know, one day I was talking to this lad and he was up till 4 o'clock in the morning playing video games. And like, here, well, come here, you're dead in the water. We have to sort something out with that. Do you know what I mean? Can you go till 3 o'clock? Because he was tired. And because he was tired, he was eating a certain way. And it's like, well, all the vegetables are good for you and protein, 1.5 grams per kilo. It's all a load of crap if his environment, being his sleep, isn't looked after. Now, sometimes people don't want you to say that. They like, I'm come here, I gave you money, tell me what to do and not what I don't want to hear. Tell me the things I want to hear. It's like, you know, that's not how it works. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, and I've done all of that. I go to bed, like, I'm not sleeping, but I'm in bed by 9:30.
Lovely.
So that I can have enough. but I just haven't been having. I know that I haven't been having deep sleep. I'm half awake. I'm aware of the room.
Because you're probably like, I don't want to get up in the morning.
Probably. And I make sure to have my dinner 2 hours before I go to bed. I've been doing that now for.
The thing I think what you'd have to lean into in that scenario is what positives is it giving you, and lean into all those positives. And then if it was genuinely worth it for you, because you know it's easy for me to say, yeah, it's a great idea, but if it was genuinely worth it, then the positive reinforcement you're getting from that, you would say, hey, I'm going to do this.
Like I'm wondering if my goal is a little too big, because my goal is to come to the gym at 6 o'clock. But I probably should start with the walk.
6:15. Yeah.
6 o'clock in my car.
Okay, yeah. Well, see, so listen, if you actually just think about that, go back to the tiny piece, to get into the car, to get here, to be like pumping iron at 6:15 in the morning, that is a huge thing. Yeah. But here's what you're going to do, right? It's like we create this habit recipe. So this is BJ Fogg's Tiny Habits. So after I do something, I will, and then we celebrate. So what we do is we have an anchor moment. So for you, if you wanted to make something super easy, you'd be like, after my alarm clock goes off, I put on my walking shoes. And then I celebrate. So this is what it would look like. And again, this would be my celebration. You can pick yours. Oh, fuck, whoa, whoa, whoa. Shoes go on. Then underpants. Shoes first, right? Because you don't want to be walking outside to be like, look at this lad again. So anyway, shoes are on. And then I go, yes! And then I make a decision. Do I get back into bed or do I go for a walk?
So now you're at the end of the bed with a gun in your hand.
Yeah. Where is this lad going here? But here's the thing, right? Could you put your shoes on? Would that be easy?
Yeah.
Yes. Your shoes.
Very far away from my bed.
So what do you do then?
Beside your bed.
Move the shoes.
You move the shoes. So you have to think about your environment and you would create it. Now this is going to seem super, like people are looking at this going, that's stupid. But this is actually...
Because if I have my clothes
Yeah.
in the drawer,
Yeah.
I will not get out of bed.
Yeah.
That's what I've started letting
Yeah.
my bag and my clothes ready.
Yeah.
It's easier. First thing.
Yeah. So listen, the difference, look, if you even take Kelly, all right, and she's coming in here, her shit is laid out like she has a glass of milk at the end of a session. It's like, how can, everything she does, she's like, how can I make this easy? She doesn't come here because I'm the best trainer in the world. I'm okay. It was easy, all right? You know, she'd say, I'm not going out there boxing, I'm going to go here. It was easy. And all those easy things created an amazing thing. So we'll go back to your thing to just stay with it. My shoes are too far away, so you know, bring the shoes there. They're right at the bed. The alarm clock goes off, and here's the other thing. You don't do it there. The alarm clock is over there, so you have to get out of bed, turn it off. Now you're out of bed. Shoes go on. Then you celebrate. Yes! So BJ has come up with a new emotion called shine. All right? And he describes that as the feeling you feel when you're doing something positive for yourself or when you're getting closer to your potential. So it's that like, yes! All right? And the thing about it is, even blind people celebrate like that, even though they've never seen anybody do that. Because you think sometimes, we only do certain things because you've seen someone else do it. These like circuits are built into us as humans. So if you celebrate something and you feel good about it, go back to what we said about motivation. You're going to release hormones, dopamine, that is going to create a habit loop where it's like, cue, alarm goes off. Craving, well, you mightn't have really a craving, right? Reward, yeah. And now you decide, right, I'm going to go for a little walk. How far you walk doesn't matter, but the fact that the shoes are on, it's like what we said about the vegetables, like the shoes are on, I might as well go for a walk now. Now, if you've done a super simple walk, then you start to layer more habits onto that. So it's like you turn around and say, I'm going to walk to the door and back. Easy. What most people would say is, and this goes back to time frame and what we said earlier, most people go, that's stupid. I'm not going to do it because it's too easy. Nothing will happen from that. But again, nothing will happen from putting your shoes on, but everything will happen from going for a walk. And you can't go for a walk in your bare feet. Does that make sense? So we have to understand what happens before the thing in order to get the thing to happen. And then we reap the rewards of the thing. He's kind of talking cryptic now. Does that make sense? So for you, I would set up your tiny habit. I'd think about what's your anchor moment? What's the tiny behavior? What's the celebration? And then a walk would go to a longer walk, and then all of a sudden you're feeling great. It's back into the summer, into the gym nice and early, I'll save you a spot. Does that make sense? Anything else, guys?
If you, like I'm moving away this year, if you change your environment completely,
Yeah.
I'm like worried about losing all my habits.
Do you know
I don't
what?
actually have that many, to be honest, but any of the good ones.
That's why we do online training. I'm only messing. No, I'm only joking. No, but listen, you are right there. So I think what you would maybe say to yourself is, right, what kind of keystone behaviours could I bring with me? Yeah. So could I run? Could I cycle? Am I going to bring that? Am I going to sign up to a gym before I even go?
Yeah.
So I mean, imagine looking or finding out and going, right, there's a gym. I'm going to sign up for a month. But you haven't been there, you haven't met them. If you're signed up, you're probably more likely to go. But this is where sitting down and actually either planning that out yourself and thinking about it, or planning it out with somebody else and go, now you've actually got a plan. Because again, and you know what, go back to what we said earlier, it was Winston Churchill. I couldn't remember his name earlier, so I kind of winged it a little bit. Some general. So Winston Churchill is like, planning is vital, plans are useless. Does that make sense? So if you go over there with no plan, what's going to happen? Probably sit at home and be like, I wish I was back in the league. No, you might get going, but it's going to take you way longer. Where you could go over there with a bit of a plan and just hit the ground running straight away. Yeah. And then you get all the benefits that you get from training. I feel good, I feel energized. All that stuff. Yeah. Does that make sense? This idea again, look, I'll finish here, but this idea of these tiny habits, that was the one thing I kind of left out. Epiphany. We can't create an epiphany. We can change our environment or the people in our environment, but the tiny habits is the real one to lean into that most people won't do because it seems too easy and too simple. But imagine these things compounding, building, that kind of idea of compound interest. You're what are you thinking there? Something.
No, I was just, some of the things you were talking about I could do myself. I was just
amazing.
I don't know why I start, but getting my bag ready anyway. So if I'm coming to the gym for 6:15,
yeah,
I have everything ready on the floor beside the bed, and I have my packed bag so I can have a shower after.
Yeah.
Make it easy.
Easy.
I just other habits is I'm a terrible man for going into the chicken counter, hot counter at the bar, getting a sausage roll or whatever. But this week, the last 2 weeks, I'm thinking, I'm spending about 100 quid a week on this kind of stuff. That's 400 quid a month.
Yeah.
It's $5,000 a year. So I'm cutting that out.
So what did you think there? There's the pain. I could go on a holiday for that money. So there's a pain piece.
A lot of cash.
That is a lot of dough. Do you know what I mean?
And you don't see it going.
No, because it's small. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, it's in small.
It's gone.
Yeah. And again, then, if you delve into that more, it'd be like, right, what's the result of having those chicken rolls that you're not happy with, for example? And again, I don't want to delve into any one thing to be like, this is good, this is bad, but the accumulation of that. Do you know what I mean?
I never feel any guilt for things like that. Like I never feel any guilt. Like if I had 3 chicken rolls, I would not feel guilty.
No, but the thing is, it's like.
But it's that because then
I don't feel guilty.
Do you know? I think it's so. It really comes down to this. The question to ask oneself is this: is doing a certain thing having a positive or negative impact on your life? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I remember a guy coming into me here, Mo, and he was 170 kilos. That's a lot of weight, all right? And for me to try and comprehend what his life is like, so for me to say to him, Mo, why don't you just park the car a little bit further and walk into your office? Imagine I gave you 50 kilos to carry, 50, 2 of them red plates, and says, go on, just walk down to Black Rock and back. We wouldn't be able to do it. So sometimes it's hard to have an appreciation of what's going on in somebody. And the point that I'm getting at there is if those chicken rolls were causing you to be in pain, causing your digestive system to be messed up, I'm not saying you should feel guilty for eating it, but then that might change your input in it. Yeah, your effect of it. It's it's not having an effect on you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's not an issue. Because again, we don't want to be like, chicken roll bad. Organic chicken good. That's not helping anybody in any way, shape or form. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. 100%. But we have these dialogues around things and then we're like, for some people, it's like, when I do this thing, it's bad, then I feel bad. And how do I make myself feel better? More of the thing that made me feel bad. So now we're into a kind of negative loop. And that can be hard to kind of break that loop. Do you know how to break? Any other questions, guys?
So is the bottom line, little tiny steps is the best way, really, along with really good...
It's either tiny steps or jump in with 2 feet and hope for the best. No. I think in most cases, it would be, think about what is it that you want? Is it truly what you want? How is that thing meaningful? Is it in alignment with your values? Is it in alignment with your priorities? And then have you got the support network or structure around you to achieve that goal? Start small and then escalate. Do you know what I mean? It's like, even in medicine, right? You're into that, like, titrate up. We don't go, give him the full whack. It's like, give them a little bit. Right, he's not dead. Give him another little bit. And then again, I suppose for you with the running, it's a story that we've told ourselves. So, like, for a lot of the people that come in here, and especially the women, the story they've told themselves is, I can't lift those big weights. All right? And then they go and they get 5 kilos, and it's like, woo, I'm lifting 5 kilos. Now, if it's your first day in the gym or whatever, no big deal, great. But if you're lifting 5 kilos, right, but you're at home and you're lifting a kid or you're lifting a laundry basket that's 20 kilos, it's like, there's a story there around, I can't do that thing, even though they can do that thing. Because if I was able to change the weights and make them twice as heavy but the same size, you just walk in and pick them up and nobody would know any difference. Does that make sense? So again, that story piece is super important. But in order to change that story, we can only change it through actions. So see all affirmations and, you just will, put good energy out into the universe and good shit comes back. Your brain's clever enough to know if you're like, just send me the money, and you don't do any of the work, it's not going to happen. So it's like, I will be fit and healthy. Without actually doing the actions, nothing happens. Does that make sense? So the action is critically important. All right? If you just jump in, get it done, small, build, it's going to be so important. Anything else, guys? Oh, Jesus, 22 minutes past. Tanya, you can't let that lad away. He'd be just talking to the bleeding cows come home. You know what, Jess? Get the chocolate. Get rid of the chocolates, Jess. So guys, one last thing, remember, the idea here is to plant the seed. In order to help that seed grow, it's about getting a bit of fertilizer on it, watering it. So it's like, if there's something here that has landed with somebody in some way, shape or form, come back to me or come back to one of the team. I like that. We've just created you your tiny habit, and now I'm going to check in to see where it is shoe.